This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, thanks for enrolling for AWS Solutions Certified Architect. So this is Vibhu. I'm having around 12 years of experience in testing, and I have been in working on this cloud platform for around 6 years. I worked on multiple cloud solutions. I worked on virtualizations. Okay, I worked on KVM, Zen. I worked on VMware, AWS, and OpenStack. This is about me. So let's start. So, so in this course, right, actually I will be giving one session on the Linux basics as well. So in AWS, right, mostly we will be working on this is Linux only, right? 99% of the operating systems will be on Linux. So we'll have one session basically covered to deal with the Linux instances. Okay. So first we'll So, I will ask one question, what we have done before cloud? Everyone is talking about cloud computing these days. Whenever there is no cloud computing, how we used to have the architecture. So, in earlier days, right, we used to have only the bare metal in the sense we used to have some physical servers. So, where let us assume if I am having some three application servers, if I want something like three application servers and one DB server, right? I used to buy some three servers. I used to procure some three servers from different vendors like Dell or other guys, right? So I used to buy three machines, okay, and I used to buy some good configuration DB server, like one server, like totally I used to buy some four machines, okay, and let us assume this out I'm using the DB server much, but in these application servers, the load is only some 5% or 10%. So this hardware is not being used. So in let us assume if I am a startup, if I want to set up this setup, right? So I have to bear a lot of cost. I have to purchase three machines and I have to put some operational cost, something like I have to have some networking in place. I used to have some DB people in place, and this all setup is required, right? So in the next era, there came to a there came a virtualization. In virtualization, what they have done, right? In our bare metal, in our physical server, right? Let us assume this is my physical server, okay? And it is having some 128 GB RAM, okay? Or and it is having some 20 cores, and it is having some 70 TB hard disk or 50 TB. Hard disk, what they have done, right? They have introduced a software called a hypervisor, okay? On this hardware, which is a hardware, they have introduced something like a hypervisor, which is on top of on top of hardware. They have introduced one software called as a hypervisor. This hypervisor will facilitate spinning multiple operating systems on one single hardware, okay? So on a single hardware, we can spin multiple operating system. That is the purpose of the hypervisor. And On top of, once we have this hypervisor installed, like hypervisors, there are like multiple vendors, like Amazon uses Zen, okay, and we have KVM, which uses we have multiple vendors, right? We have something like AWS, uh, M, uh, we have Microsoft, and we have something like uh, Azure. So each one is having their own hypervisors. Some are like proprietary, some are like mostly depend on Zen. Okay, so they will install this hypervisor on top of it, and then they can spin multiple OS. Okay, they can spin multiple OS. Okay, so this is how these virtualizations came into picture. By using the hypervisor, instead of having three machines over here in my old model, traditional model, here I will be having, I will be installing three OSs where I will be running three applications, and I will be installing one DB server in one a system with a good hardware configuration. Okay, so that this hardware cost can be minimized. Clear till now? No response. Am I clear or not?
Clear.
So now let us assume this is called as like virtualization. So in cloud computing, a third party will use this infrastructure. Like this thing will be used by the third party. Okay, so the third party vendor can be AWS or Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud Platform or Oracle Cloud. What they will use, right? They will use this thing, same infrastructure and same setup, and they will give other person a lease. So let us assume like I will be procuring this hardware, and I will be spinning the multiple virtual machines, and I will give them as rent. That is called as cloud computing. To say simple, right? Cloud computing is something like leasing the infrastructure by a third party vendor. So let us assume, so like this, a cloud provider will have multiple infrastructure like this, and so the cloud provider will have like multiple infrastructure like this, and they will give these virtual machines as rent. That is called as like cloud computing. Clear till now? So like what is virtualization, as I mentioned now, right? So the virtualization is the creation of the virtual servers or infrastructure and devices and cloud computing services. Okay, so like basically it is a software, okay, which enables this virtualization, which enables like spinning the multiple OS. And the hypervisor used in the Amazon is the Zen hypervisor. Okay, there are basically like two types of hypervisors, the, type 1 and type 2. So in type 1, what will happen, right? First you will be having a hardware. Okay, on top of it, right, you will be having some hypervisor, as I mentioned. Okay, and on top of the hypervisor you will be installing the guest OS in the sense of Linux or Windows or whatever. Okay, and you will be running the multiple machines, like you can run one application in one machine, or you can run multiple applications in one OS, right, with the different ports. That is the type 1. The type 1 is used by the these cloud providers like Amazon or Azure. Okay, and there is another thing called as a type 2. In type 2, what will happen, right, on an hardware, like let us assume like this as a laptop. In laptop, how you will have, first you will have a hardware. On top of it, right, you will be having some Windows operating system or something. On top of it, right, what you will have, you will have a hypervisor in place, right. You will be installing some virtual box or something, right. That is the hypervisor or VMware workstation. On top of it, right, will be spinning the OS operating systems. We will be installing Windows or something. Okay, so and on top of it, right, you can install your own applications. So this is called as a type 2. Okay, the problem with the type 2 is, like, if the, let us assume, if the host OS crashes, right, if there is any OS problem during upgrade or something, right, then my complete all the virtual machines will go off. So all the cloud providers will use this model, type 1. Okay, before entering into the cloud computing, we will discuss on like what cloud computing like is. Let us assume like so, like in your current organization, right, current organization, let us assume like it is an ABC company. Okay, okay, let us assume there is one thing called like ABC company. In that, right, what you should have, you tell me. I'm hosting I'm a owner of an ABC company. Now I want to have my, I have to run one project. What are the things you should have? I'm expecting answers. First thing is like we should have networking, right? Correct. Next, networking. Next, you should have something like hardware now. And next, you should have something like
infrastructure.
yeah, infrastructure, or I will put it as an infrastructure. Next, you should have something like some storage, correct?
Yeah, storage.
Then you, let us assume like you are running some multiple applications. Okay, then there will be some load balancers in place which will split the traffic, correct? Then you will be having some DNS server, correct or not? What this DNS server will do, it will do the IP address, host to IP address translation, correct? Like let us assume if I give abc.com, it will go to the corresponding server which is like 10 dot or whatever 10.1.1.1 and give you the response, correct? So, and you will have something like shared drives. You will be having something like uh, 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 NFS, network file systems you will be having, right, to mount the different drives. You'll be having some firewalls. you will be having these DB servers. These all are necessary if you host this in order to set up a company on the on-premises. Yes or no? If I want to set up a company on on-premises, right, all these are needed. So let's assume like if I move to cloud, what will happen, right? The same thing can be each service, right? Let us assume like there is something like networking service, there is something like infrastructure, there is a storage. These, when we move to cloud, right, everything will be like a service provided by the AWS. Okay, so let us assume for networking, when we go to AWS, we will have something like VPC. So VPC is a component which provides the networking service in the cloud. Okay, and infrastructure in the sense like spinning the OSS, right? For this one, right, you will be having a EC2. In EC2s, right, we can spin like whatever the desired capacity and desired operating systems. I can spin like Windows or Linux or Mac or whatever. Okay, and you will be having something like storage. There are like multiple storage things like I can go for S3 bucket if I want to host, if I want to store something like globally, right, I can put it in the S3 bucket. Or you will be having like EFS, elastic file system, and you will be having some different types of load balancers. Okay, you will be having load balancers over here. And for DNS server, right, we will be having some Route 53. And these firewalls and DB servers, one second. These firewalls will be covered in this VPC only. Okay, for DB servers, right, you will be having one component called as like RDS. So if for a startup or some company to establish, to bring this setup right into their premises and start working, right, it will take a lot of expenditure, right? They have to hire multiple people, and they have to buy different types of like storage, load balancers or Route 53 servers and all those. Instead of that, right, if a cloud platform provides, okay, some features like if they provide this networking infrastructure storage solutions in cloud, and you won't pay, you will pay only for what you use. Let us assume like if I'm using for 1 hour, I will pay for only 1 hour pay per use. Okay, this this cloud platform is a pay as you go model. Like whatever you use, right, you will pay. Let us assume like if you are spending for some 10 hours, you will pay only for 10 hours. Okay, and per hour you will be maximum spending like around like $1 or $3. So here there are like two types of expenses. One is capital versus operational. So capital expenditure is something like whatever you invested the first time when you are setting up your environment, or whenever you are setting up your infrastructure, right, that is the capital. So in this on premises, right, this capital expenditure will be more. Operational cost is something like which, like once you have set up, right, the ongoing cost, like in order to maintain that infrastructure, right, that is called as the operational cost. but whenever you go to cloud, right, you won't have this capital expenditure. You no need to invest for the infrastructure. So this is being leased by some third party, and you will only pay for whatever you use. Now you got like what is cloud and what the cloud vendors will do.
Yes.
Okay, so just a second. I will give one more example how the logical split happens. So let us assume like you are working in an organization. Okay, so what actually we do in cloud, right? I will just explain. Okay, like let us assume like this is this is your organization. Okay, in your organization you are having some, and it's a service model. Okay, you will be handling the projects from different vendors. Okay, so currently, right, you are handling the projects of two vendors. Okay, you are handling like, for that, right, we have set up some different ODC. You know what is the client ODC, right? So you have set up some ODC. Okay, in ODC, right, what will happen? You will be having some physical servers, right? You will be having some, you will be having the client applications. Okay, you will be having the applications, you will be having the desktops, and you will be having some separated network. Correct? Let us assume this is my abccompany.com. Okay, ABC. Okay, this is having one set of infrastructure. Okay, this is having one set of infrastructure. In that, it is running like project 1, and it is running second project called project 2. Okay, if you see, as these projects are being run by ABC company, right, you will be having the communicator access between these two projects, right? Let us assume like there is one friend who is working on this system in the project 1. He will be having, he may have like two communicators. One is related to this project 1 and other would be this abc.com company. Correct? Yes or no? So here they are able to access, they are able to chart via using this office communicator of ABC. Okay, but they can't share the client information. Let us assume like you are having, these are all the PCs. Okay, whether, and here we are having something like, give me a second. So there is something like DB server. Okay, here also there is a DB server. You tell me whether this project 1 resource can access this DB to server, sorry, this DB server or this application which is for project 2. This project 1 resource who is working on this PC, whether he will be able to access this another project DB server? No, right?
If there is some sort of peering connection, then it might.
Yeah, but in your projects, I meant to say, not
No,
peering
then
and
no.
all those. No. So in AWS or something, that what we will do, right? Basically, we will we will build a network and we will restrict the network. Let us assume like I'm creating two networks, like two VPCs over here, right? Or let us assume like, and I can restrict or I can connect. As part of the course, right, you will be learning these things, like you will be able to spin like multiple public or private subnet, and you can make connection. Those things are possible. That's what I try to say, right? What I'm trying to say is that one. Got it? But they will be having this communicator access, right? Let us assume like there is something like you will have a corporate router. So whenever there will be some ODCs where you won't have any net or internet access, correct? So correct or not, there are some ODCs which they won't have current direct internet access. If they come to that, they will surrender their, well, entering to that project, right? They will entering in the office, they will surrender, they will put their cell phones and all those in their lockers, and they will go into that, enter into that ODC. For them, right, they won't have the external access. So such kind of things we can put it in the AWS as part of the course, right? We'll be spinning one a network in which you will be having, will be restricted with the internet access. Because why we are spinning these things, right? This is part of as part of the AWS guy, you should be able to configure your environment based on the client requirement. The client requirement may be anything, like he may have, let us assume like he's hosting his DB server in a private subnet. There will be two types of subnets, like public subnet and private subnet. So in private subnet, right, you won't have any internet connection. Got it? So external fellow can't come directly into my private subnet and access my DB. If he wants to access my DB, he has to come via application only. Application, in application server, you will be having a JDBC connection. Whenever he calls, whenever he requests anything from UI, right, that will go to the application server, and application server will fetch the, or create a, or get the data, or put the data into the DB, and it will fetch the response. So those kinds of infrastructure will be designed in this course. So you will be at the end of the course, right, you will be able to create a network, and you will be able to create a, like as I told, right, let us assume like if you are having some IP address, right, then you will mapping it to some abc.com. So then what will happen, right, if you type abc.com, right, my site will be opened. Those things are provided as services in AWS, and you will be learning like how to configuring those. Now you got an overview, right? So to continue this, right, so let us assume like there are, as I mentioned, like there are two projects. No, I can configure internet only to this network. Okay, a from project one only, they will be accessing the internet. Like whenever I send a request, right, that will go to my company's router. Okay, and from there it will be going to the internet. It will be going outside your company's network. For this one, right, I won't configure anything. So it is an internal network. No communication will be sent outside. So these kind of things will be covered. Now we'll go through the what will be covered as part of this solutions architect course. So basically, right, we'll be taking one class on this Linux. Okay, so what are the commands that are being used? Apart from that, right, we'll be discussing on the what is the virtualization, different types of virtualizations. Okay, and hypervisor, what is hypervisor and its benefits and vendors, right? So we'll be covering this virtualization, and when it comes to that AWS, right, we'll be discussing on like what is like EC2, what are the services that are available in AWS, and we'll be discussing on what is region, what is availability zones. Okay, and we'll be discussing on like how to set up a free tier account. And actually, as I mentioned in the some time back, right, there will be something like a EC2 instance which will enable you to create an or spin an OS, like it may be like Windows or something like that, right? Linux. So we'll be talking about that EC2 instance. Okay, so if I log in into this, actually if I give aws.amazon.com, right, you will get into this console, or you can give directly console.aws.amazon.com. Okay, actually I think I have already logged in. So actually when I click on services, right, here, these are all the services that are being used, that are being developed by AWS. Okay. So if I go to the compute, right, we'll be discussing on the EC2 instance, and we'll be discussing on the Elastic Beanstalk. Okay. So make sure like no one will know everything in AWS, right? There are like multiple services. You can't expect one person to know all the services. It is not possible. Okay, there will be like each service will have a specialization. Got it? So like for each, like mostly like
Your
for
screen is too short.
pardon,
Screen bit very short. I can't see this one. Font size and everything.
are you able to see now?
Screen of yours.
Okay, 1 second. Are you able to see now? Is it fine? Is it fine now? Are you able to see? Okay.
Fonts are very small.
Yeah, it will be like they have to embed all the services, right? So that will be like that only. So okay, let me try. Is it fine now?
Fine.
Yeah. So in services, if I click on services, right here you will be having like multiple services. Okay, if I scroll down, right, you'll be having something like compute, machine learning, and like storage, okay, and database and migration and networking and content delivery. So like this we are having like n number of services. Okay, so it is not necessary like a person should know everything. It is not possible. Okay, there will be like if you take EC2 instance, right, there will be a specialization for that. If you take something like S3, there will be a separate specialization course and certification for that. Okay, so our view is to understand, like once you get into your project, right, you will be able to understand what AWS is, and this course will enable you to work on an AWS project, and you can create your own infrastructure, and you create you by using these services. No, you can create your own machines, and you can configure your application servers. You can do the deployment part also, apart from the testing. Got it? You can.
Yes.
So as I mentioned, like EC2 instance, okay, and there will be something like AMIs and all those, right? This will be discussed in our classes. Okay, so like there will be something like key pairs which will be used to log into those machines. So and what are the types of, like, right? So each and every application will have some definite hardware requirements, right? Like some applications need some 5 GB of RAM, some applications require like 10 GB RAM, and they will be more specific. If you see, there will be some applications which are like memory intensive, some are CPU intensive. So for those machines, right, we will be providing based on the need. Like if it is a CPU intensive, then you will be giving them like more CPU and less hardware. If it is a less storage, if it is something like memory intensive, right, you will provide more RAM and less CPU. Got it? Like that, we will be having different types of instances. Okay, pre-configured instances where you have to select based on our need, and we will be having something like load balancing. Let us assume like I am having one application set. Okay, what I will do now, I am having some EC2 instance. Okay, from some, this is my EC2 instance. Okay, now I have set up some configuration, something like some 16 GB RAM and some 6 vCPU. Okay, this is my EC2 configuration. Now I have spinned one instance and I have deployed my application on top of it. Okay, now whenever I put my instance in the cloud, whenever I spin an instance in the cloud, right, I can do a load balancing. So based on the load, like let us assume like I can put at something like threshold, like 70% CPU. So whenever this marker breaches, no, whenever this threshold breaches, I can trigger, I can set a rule. There is a concept like automatic load balancing. Okay, ASG will have, okay, auto scaling group. Using that feature, right, I can spin one more instance. Okay, I can spin one more instance, and that resides under our load balancer. Okay, there is something like ASG concept, auto scaling group. Using that feature, right, we can enable the like scaling. This is called as like horizontal scaling. Okay, that will be done using this load balancing. Got it? And there will be like multiple load balancers. Okay, we'll be discussing on what are the load balancers that are being available. Okay, and there will be something like EBS, elastic block storage. Okay, so let us assume here only in EC2 instance, whenever like in your projects also, how you will have your storage, you will be having a different mount point, right? You won't put anything on the mount partition, correct? Let us assume if you are having some C drive, if you are deploying your application, let us assume like in Linux there will be something like root partition. Under root partition you won't deploy any application, correct or not? If the OS gets corrupted or something, like the application is gone. So what you will do, you will map a secondary device like dev/sda. Oops, 1 second. This is how you will have, right, in your office. If you have gone through some many Linux machine, your application will be deployed like this. Whenever you go to /app1, right, you will be having your own application where it is deployed. And you will be, if you go to /db, then you will be having a the DB server. You will be installing your DB server over here and different mount points. So this elastic block storage deals with that one, configuring different mount points as well as the taking the snapshots and all those. Okay. And when it comes to storage, right, so we will have something like S3, because S3 is the backbone of AWS. Okay, so like Google Drive and Google Drive or OneDrive, right, S3 provides something like AWS provides something like S3, where you can put like your objects, like you can put your files, like files can be like media files or like backups, or this S3 will host the Git repository. Some, for most of the companies, right, they will have their own Maven thing, right, they will have their own artifactories, right, they will be having the Docker images and all those repositories will be set up in this S3 bucket. And if you see this I mean Prime, or if you go to this Netflix, right, you will store these movies, right, content delivery, those things will be present in this S3 only. From they will keep those media files in the S3 bucket. From S3 bucket they will pull it and stream it, and this service will host the static web pages also. Got it? Next, Route 53. What this Route 53 will do, right? Now, as I mentioned, right, I have spinned one application with EC2 instance. On top of it, right, I am having some load balancer. So my load balancer will have some labc dot something like lb.com, or it may have some IP address, right, or 10.10 dot sorry 10.10.1.12. Okay, so it will be having some IP address. So I can't remember this IP address, right, every time if I want to access my application. For that, right, we'll be using this Route 53. By using this Route 53, what I will be doing, right, Route 53, I will be mapping this IP address with a domain name. How I will create my domain now. Let us assume if I write something like abc.com. If I put abc.com, it should translate to either 10.10.1.12. You got it? By using this Route 53 service, I will do the configuration such that I can map this abc.com to either the IP address of a load balancer or an host name of the load balancer. So going forward, if I give abc.com, right, then automatically my application will be like opened. If I send any traffic on top of it, right, what will happen? It will be either sent to this application or this server. You got it, right? Both are same application but different hardware. It may go to first machine or second machine. Got it? Such that the load will be distributed. And there will be one thing, and there are like multiple like algorithms, actually basically routing policies will be there. Okay, we'll be discussing these routing policies in detail. I don't want to confuse, just I will tell about like what is this Route 53 on a high level, so that you will get an idea. Next is like identity and access management. Let us assume like this, I will be having some n number of machines, like yes or no. In my office, in my project, like this, I may have multiple multiple setups, right? Okay, I will be having something like this, and this may belong to one project, and this belongs to one project. So my job is to provide the authorization and authentication, right? So this project resource should be able to log into these machines. As I mentioned, like there are like multiple services like Route 53. Let us assume like there are like multiple teams. Okay, there is something like admin team, dev team, and testing team. Okay, so for testing team, right, they know just they have to start the instance and they can stop the instance. Basically they won't stop and start also, right? Just they need the read-only access. Okay, got it. And dev team, right, they will be able to spin EC2 instances, or they will to provide any authorization or authentication thing, right, that can be achieved by using this IAM, identity and access management. You can create users, you can create a groups, and for each group you can provide some authorizations, like this group will have only S3 bucket access, other group will have only EC2 instance access, and some people can create a subadmin, so that those things will be part of this identity and access management. So in order to maintain this infrastructure and provide access, right, we'll use this identity and access management. Got it? In order to maintain this infrastructure, right, not all people will be all the, let us assume like this is a project 1 and project 2. So this project 1 the access should be provided to only this project 1 people, right? So those things will be achieved by using this IAM service. Got it? And security management is something like you will be having some certificates, right? Client certificate and public certificate, right? Private and public key. And let us assume like if you want to AWS to generate a key and you want to use it, right, those things will be covered as part of this. And this is actually very important, like VPC. Okay, so like VPC is a logical network. Basically, right, I told right now in my 10 minutes back, like you will be having one ODC where you will be having only access. If there is an ODC2, right, only those people will be having access. So to provide a create a network or spin a network, right, those things will be done using this Amazon VPC. Let us assume like here, I want to make it as a closed network. I want to create this as a closed network, and this one I want to create as a closed network, and there won't be any, there will be a logical separation such that no one can access these resources, project 2 resources from project 1. Got it? So those things can be done using the VPC. In VPC you will be having some, we can spin some load balancers, and those will be associated to some EC2 instance or DB or something like that. So at the end of the course, you will be able to like know like what is this VPC, and in that VPC like how you will spin multiple AWS resources, and this VPC will be a logically separated, and will be like dealing with this RDS. This is like a relational database service. RDS means something like a DB. It can be like let us assume like here this is a DB. Okay, this is a DB server. In your current company, right, how you will have a DB? If you have a DB server installed, right, your admin has to create a DB. Okay, and he has to take the backups and he has to maintain it, right? When it comes to an AWS, and he has to procure the license, all these things will happen. But whenever you enter into a cloud, right, Amazon will directly spin you like a DB server based on your configuration. Got it? Either it can be like 1 TB or like 2 TB. based on your hardware you select, you will be spinned with a database. Just you need to provide what are the credentials you need, like username and password for connecting to the DB. The health and the backups and everything will be taken care by the AWS itself. So you no need a DBA to maintain your database. Whenever your DB size increases, right, Amazon will take care of increasing the DB in the backend, and periodic backups and all those will be taken care by the Amazon itself. And there will be something like CloudWatch, and these are like checking the logs, or if you want to monitor the CPU, or if you want to get the stats and all those, right, to configure the alarms, right, you will be having some management tools. Okay, and there will be something like application services like SNS and all those, and we'll be dealing about this like troubleshooting the EC2 instance. Okay, or like uh, and CloudWatch will be there. CloudWatch is something like, now let us assume like I'm spinning some 1,000 instances. Okay, let us assume like I'm spinning some 100 instances. Okay, I'm spending some 100 OS. In that I'm having some 100 applications. So CloudWatch, what CloudWatch will do, right, CloudWatch will ship these application logs to the AWS. There is one service called as like CloudWatch service. So what this CloudWatch services will do, right, the applications logs, whatever you that gets generated in your OS, right, that will be shipped to a service called as CloudWatch. If you want to see your logs, right, you no need to go to that particular log into that OS and do directly. You can go to this AWS and you can select the service like CloudWatch. One second, I will minimize the screen. Here I can, oops. Okay, so I can click on this CloudWatch. So these are some Route 53 metrics. Okay, so one second. If I go to logs over here, no, currently I don't have one. I will check. So these are the log messages. Okay, from one particular instance. So these logs can be seen in this UI itself. So you don't need to go to that application and check. So you can forward your logs from your application and you can see from one dashboard. Got it? The log events. So like this, AWS provides like multiple services. Those things will be discussed. I'm done, guys. Like if you have any questions, I will take.
Two questions. One, so can you explain certification path in brief?
Yeah.
Also, you can, if you can, like deploy a sample virtual machine or a web app, just for like, just to see.
Yeah.
So
So if you want, so the entry level would be like the AWS Cloud Partitioner. Okay. After that, right, you will be having three streams. One is like Solutions Architect, one is like Certified Developer, and SysOps Administrator. Okay. So if you go now, you are taking this course. Okay. If you take this course, right, directly you can go to this DevOps along with this like developer associate as well as the SysOps administrator. Okay, so if you learn this, right, you will be learning some 40 to 50% of this course and 70% of the SysOps administrator. So both will be having like they will start from basics, right, like what is EC2 instance, how to spin an EC2 instance. Those things will be covered. This is like this is the path, and after that, right, we will be having some specializations. Like let us assume, like if you are having some machine learning, right, you will be having one certification for machine learning as well.
Okay.
And you asked something like how to spin, right? So
Yeah. Any example?
yeah, now as I mentioned, right, EC2 will take care of spinning the instances. Okay, so I have to click on the launch instance. Okay, then I will be presented with multiple OSs. Okay, these are like multiple OSs. Like one is like Amazon Linux. Okay, one is like Mac. Okay, and one is the Red Hat and SUSE Linux. So like that, we will be having some. First, we have to select the operating system, whatever we need. Currently, I'm selecting this operating system. Then, like this is like a complex process. Basically, like I have to explain you everything related to this one. What I can do, right? I have to select the next, and if I click launch, right, my instance will be screened and I will be provided with an IP. Got it?
Yes.
And I'm having one instance over here in Mumbai region. So you will be getting something like this, right? You'll be having some instance, and once I start, right, the instance will be started, and you will be getting one IP address for logging into that machine. Okay, you will be having the private public IP address, right? You will be getting this public IP address whenever I start an instance from which I can log in into this machine. Okay,
Like an
these things covered in our future classes as part of the course. How to create and how to log in.
okay. So the free account will last for 30 days, right?
Yeah, it will it will be the 30 days course.
Okay. Thank you.